May I suggest to you that Judeo-Christian worldview is the only one that will
Well,
give
like
you
so
a
many
sense of
people
purpose,
watching this, I grew up
authenticity,
listening to
and an
Ravi, and
inherently
it was during my
answering
job
faith.
interview with him back in
What does
2017
it mean?
that he asked me if I'd share my testimony with them. And I was just so excited to get to say to him, thank you for impacting me. And
You
so when
may
I got
not
to the
know
part of
why
my
you're
story
here
where I
this
share with him about
afternoon,
how his
but let's
ministry,
begin.
about the
Maybe
credibility
it
and
was a
beauty of
friend,
who Jesus
maybe
is,
you're
how
here
that
for
helped
the
me
first time.
find that the God I loved is actually real, he put his hands on his heart just like this and said, "Are you serious?" And he looked surprised, and I was shocked that he was surprised. And he said, that's so beautiful that God is able to let me be part of your story. And the
Jesus
fact that every
introduced
time
you to the real
he was
meaning of life.
surprised
May I
and in
speak your
awe
language?
that God was able to use just an ordinary person like himself, and to see the humility that led him to live in awe and wonder, such a beautiful thing.
What do you think was the secret to staying that humble when he had so much incredible acclaim and success?
When we were chatting, I asked, like, Ravi, how are you able to be growing in your affection and awe and of who Jesus is, all these years of grueling, exhausting ministry? And he said, Daniel, it's because of what I say no to. And I didn't understand what he meant, so I asked him to elaborate. And he said, hey, I refuse to be draining my time and energy with TV shows and sports. I even stay away from a lot of news, and
His name
try to make
is
sure that I get to
Jesus.
spend
You
time
will
in
see him
private, in the
and
word and in
find
prayer.
the real
So
meaning
much
of
of
life.
the impact he made is because he cultivated the intimacy of his walk with Christ. And then he also worked so hard. He was always
Questions will
reading
be
new books,
rational
old books,
because they
studying,
are genuine
preparing
questions.
to be able to
What
engage
doesn't
with people's
exist,
questions and
these
speak
very
to people's hearts,
questions
and
are
to see how he worked so
irrational.
hard, and that helped him make the impact he did,
Moral
helps me
reasoning,
realize that you
there
and
is an
I are
absolute
invited to
truth.
do the
There is
same
an
thing. We've been
absolute
called to do
law.
the same thing.
And it
Maybe
is
not the same
all
type of
based
public
on the
ministry as him,
transcendent
but you and I have
truth.
been called to cultivate intimacy with Christ and to be excellent at whatever it is God has called us to do.
You talked in your article about what surprised you about Ravi, about his love for the skeptic. Talk to me
Mhm.
about how he saw each individual and how he dealt with sometimes combative people.
Well, yeah, a lot of us have seen those clips on YouTube with a secular speaker where a student walks up really aggressive and asks a hostile question, and they think they have the speaker, but the speaker turns the table around and just embarrasses the student in front of a whole arena of people. And it's a beautiful thing to see just the opposite, where a student comes up and asks an aggressive question, and you can see right away before Ravi even opens his mouth the love that he has for the student just shining from his face.
How did you see Ravi, who knew that he was sent home to die, and without a miracle, that was going to be the end of that journey for him at so young, at 74 years old? How did you see him face that?
I saw two things that be his focus in those final weeks, which are really the focus of his whole life, which is the beauty of who Jesus is, and the call to proclaim the gospel. And so you can see it in the way that Ravi would speak about Jesus, that you could see his longing to see his face, the great expectation he had to finally see the face of the one whom he loved with all his heart. The other thing was that he mustered all his strength that he could to be able to take time to pour into other people, being able to continue on with the call of the Great Commission. And so whether that's our team members, family members, or even people from other ministries, he welcomed them to his bedroom in his final weeks and the final days of his life. And he had hardly any strength left, but he would muster up the strength to be able to ask them a question about how they're doing, and then also just plead with them to continue steadfastly in the call. And in his final couple of days, he could hardly utter a sound, but there was one word that he kept repeating again and again, so gently, which was gospel. And his life really was defined by that good news. And I think that part of his path toward dying well is the way that he lived out he lived out those truths, his life, the beauty of Jesus and the call to share the gospel.
And
And one of the ways that I got to see this the most beautifully and tangibly is that my wife and I were expecting our first baby. We were so thrilled to be pregnant. And then just at the very end of April, we discovered there were some complications with our baby in the womb. And so I WhatsApped the team saying, hey, please pray for our baby. And even this is the final weeks of Ravi's life, I got a note from his wife, Margie, saying, hey, Ravi and I are praying for you. And by this point, it was early May, and I knew that Ravi, like, it was a lot of work for him to say anything, but he and his wife were for taking time to pray for us. And then we lost our baby just before Mother's Day, and we received a note from Margie and from Sarah Davis, Ravi's daughter, the CEO of our ministry. I couldn't believe that they had taken time to write to us with all that they were going through, fighting for Ravi's life. Then even this past Friday, after Ravi had passed away, we received another note from Sarah saying, hey, we're praying for you. And so to see Ravi's heart, his love for every individual human being, even our precious vulnerable baby in the womb, is so precious. And this shows how not only is that something that emanated from his heart, but it shines through his family and our whole global team.
Thank you so much for joining us to remember him.
Thank you.